Protection is in our DNA. It's all within our service modules. Our two products that we're talking about at the show are Protected Full Service, where we do everything for a client, soup to nuts, small to large client, and Protected Data Center, which is for apps and organizations. 39% of healthcare organizations do not even know they get compromised or attacked. Why healthcare? Who is attacking? How are they attacking? What are they attacking and how to stop them? 686 organizations were attacked, and it's something like $14 billion worth of data was stolen. Millions of people are being affected. Why? Follow the money. There is no greater value to data than healthcare data. Why? Because healthcare data is directly feed to money, and you don't need very much. Social Security number, a few other descriptions, date of birth, and you've got hooks that you can then clone. So this data is really easy to obtain relatively, and it's very valuable. And it's a target. Who's being attacked? Hospitals are a big target, obviously. That's where the data, a lot of data is concentrated. Who's being attacked are also vendors, third-party vendors. So you have a monitoring system in your organization to track and make sure that everything is running. Well, if they get compromised, you're getting compromised. That's the slippery slope. 74%, how do they get it? 74% come in through infrastructure of some level. Remote control, FTP, some mechanism that's been opened to allow inbound connection to data, then gets compromised or attacked. What gets hacked? Here, we've all seen ransomware and malware attacks. Overly broad access is a real issue. There's too much access given to general classifications of users, and locking them down and sniffing it drastically reduces the footprint. Okay, the trends. This is, when we look at what's occurring and the evolution, there are some real stark trends that I've seen in 2022 to bring up. One is, we're still using, for some god-awful reason, FTP, which has been a hack protocol for a long time. And I've heard the argument, oh yes, if it's running over a VPN tunnel. So you have absolutely no idea what's running on it. And I can't tell you the number of organizations that will look at the FTP links and they have 600, 700 links. What do they do? Do you have a list? Why are these connections here? Oh no, they're just there. Is anybody using them? We don't know. Okay, those are things you should know, or should be monitoring for, right? Should be tracing. What is the data? In any case, FTP can be removed or eliminated. There are many more secure ways to do file transfer in 2022 in FTP. Even outside of a VPN, which VPNs aren't great to begin with, but that's another story. Growth, data mining, and the growth of data. So AI is really, really big, and looking at data, AI will only continue to become more important. And what does AI mean to be accurate? Data. The more data you have, the more precise the data modeling can do. So whereas you say, well, past 7 years, HIPAA is not needed, so can't I believe everything in 7 years or more? Sure, that from a data policy, that would be a great thing to do. If you actually don't need it, believe it, so then you can't compromise something that's needed. However, then you can't do AI against created data. So now the fourth, the movement, the approach that's happening in IT is keep medical data forever. Why? Because now you can generate really accurate AI models for it. User growth, business consolidation, practices are growing larger, they're expanding, organizations are growing, what happens? Those organizations get folded in. Now your network is growing larger and larger and larger, and is only continuing. That largeness causes gaps, causes holes, because those two organizations are laid out the same way, and so therefore you create gaps. Increasing connections, mobile devices. My favorite is mobile devices put directly on the wire. Network segmentation exists for a reason. If there will be a lot more mobile devices, don't put them directly on the direct wire. Set up an isolated environment for them. Open only what they need access to and what the connections are. Not all connections for everything. Exposed infrastructure. I've seen organizations that open ports and they just leave them open. Well, we needed that port opened in 2005. I said, well, have you looked? 2021, 2022. So can't we shut it off now? Anything that's been left open, to try to do a survey so that you can tighten up ports. But in any case, exposure of infrastructure. We've seen switches that get installed and then the default ID, the default password, really ports. Because then what happens? Anybody who knows the device can set the device can hack into it. And one of the worst things is, in the IT world, is limited budget. So all this growth and all this expansion that's occurring is happening on a budget that's not growing. Which then really puts you in a bad location. Weak points, legacy technology, forgotten updates or patches, and overshared data. Those are really areas that need to be addressed and resolved. Attack sources, resellers of IT. I mentioned Microsoft. That was September, October of last year. Big attack on their reseller. Once you're compromised, then the companies themselves actually had no idea because their vendors were the ones who were compromised. SolarWinds, another vendor that was compromised. What did they do? That was an open source tool, and so the attackers were really sophisticated. And this is what's happening. It's becoming a proliferation of sophistication. What's it for? They downloaded the source code to SolarWinds and modified it, and then uploaded it to the repository and said, hey, this is a new feature here. Yeah, the feature was you can hack into it. And SolarWinds pulled it in and put it into the deployment. And then millions of people, millions of devices were then compromised because of it. I'm not against open source. SolarWinds is a fine product. It's the combination that really gets you. So that SolarWinds attack, if customers had installed it locally in your environment, not third party. You had a server on-prem that was behind your firewall. You would have not been. But it's the combination. You then go to an outside vendor. The outside vendor uses a piece of compromised software, and now you're compromised and you don't even know you're compromised. So partly, and this is where security has to become part of the mantra and the thought process. And this is what we do for customers. Like when we take on a customer, we don't just say, "Oh, they're servers. We'll just pick them up and bring them in," or "Here's your application. Let's bring it in." We look at where every failure point is, and we diagnose it. So, if a customer has a big database, we'll say, "Is it an HA? Do you have high availability so that if one server goes down, it'll stay up? Do you have that HA pair in one data center or two data centers? And do you mind? Maybe it's acceptable to have outages for an hour or two. What's the pain window that's okay? Is this a batch process that runs all the time? Okay, what happens if it gets stuck at 2 o'clock in the morning? Who's responding? What are we looking for in a failure event? These are all the pieces that go into keeping an organization running. And it's harder and harder because of the slippery slope. So SolarWinds is a fine product, not a problem. Open source is great, but the combination of using it and then using a third party gets you into trouble. Connected devices. We had a client with tablets, and they simply, tablet turns on, and it says, okay, what's the Wi-Fi code? We'll put in the regular code, and the general code, and now you have a secure device that's supposed to be secure with medical data, being able to look at a PC, be able to look at a server, be able to go to the cloud, do anything you want. There's no harm, there's no deterioration of service to simply making a new VM dedicated to that mobile device or to that group of devices, depends on what needs to be configured. And that tunnel or that VLAN can only go out to the internet or can only access one server on that environment. And you can then put rules in your firewalls and your proxies so that only if it's outbound to the internet, it can only go to one location. So now if that device then gets compromised, it can't share the data, it can't go anywhere else. Got security. However, that all takes time. And that's where the budgets really hurt, because you've got to be thinking about security. It's not, oh, let me get a device and patch it. It's not a one and done. It's an ever-growing issue. I mean, it's, as a data person, someone who's dealt with this pretty much all my life, I get really frustrated when I see this solves virus ABC, and this solves DEF. Okay, so you mean I have to buy or update each patch? Well, then I'm only as good as the viruses I know about. What about the ones I don't know about? How about we turn the entire model around and say, how did that get in? And stop where it got in. And so we do this for all our clients. It's the painful part is that conversion process, because you take an organization maybe that's used to having, I'll keep it really simple, a file folder that 400 people have access to. Well, great, that's called a virus petri dish, right? So now you have to use the culture to convert, right? That's doing it the right way. And we do, because I don't like 2 a.m. phone calls. How do you protect? How can any organization protect itself? Isolated backups, really important. So most servers these days, virtually all, are virtual. So do the backup on the hypervisor. Do the backup in the background. The idea behind an isolated backup means that that backup cannot be compromised, regardless of, you can have a virus that proliferates everywhere. It can't get to the backup. If it's not in a virtualized environment, what you can do is have a one-way configuration so that the data can only come in and go out. There's 4 different configurations of networking and structure to set up, but the goal is that that backup is protected and secure so that no matter what, it can't be attacked. Whether that's a snapshot, whether that's a rotating backup, however you want to do it, that's fine. But the idea is that has to be your last line of defense if there's ever a problem. Reduce shares, really, really big on reducing shared data in general. Not just, I use the file folder, but I've seen apps that, 2 apps using REST API, but they're not using encryption. It's like it's built in for REST. You have to ignore it. Like, what do you do? You do a handshake, and then you'll have encrypted connection. Network segmentation, really big on this, whether it's merging of companies or departments, segment the network, always. No flat networks. Keep them as disconnected as is possible. And yes, it makes it a little harder when you deploy a new device in a specific location, but it will also stop attacks from being global and rampant. Encryption, this is where you remove FTP and use REST with an encrypted handshake. That does require some code change, but it is an encrypted end-to-end. You don't need any other encryption on top of it like VPN. Why protective harbor? Because we think about technology from the beginning, and we help you from the beginning. So we are a really good candidate for your data center or tech support. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah. Can you